On today's episode of Locked On Canadiens, despite Chris Lee's best efforts, the Canadiens escape with a late night win in Vancouver to get right back into the mix.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 1264 of Locked On Canadiens. Thanks so much for subscribing and making us your first listen of the day. Doing that supports us, and make sure you don't miss an episode. As a reminder, we are free and available everywhere you get your podcast 5 days a week, including after games that end at 1 in the morning Eastern Daylight Time. My name is Ian Boisvert. At Maybe It's Ian. I'm joined, as I always am, by Laura Saba, also known as the Actor Stick. Laura, they made it interesting at the end for all the wrong reasons, but the Montreal Canadiens escape with 2 points. How are we feeling other than tired? Tired is the free square. How else are we feeling?
So I thought that late game stress was very unnecessary. The Montreal Canadiens did not need to do that with about 9 or 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
It was starting to shape up to be a fun game. And in the first period, I kept dreading the second period because I'm like, what happens with the Canucks adjustments? And then that was fine. And then in the third period, I think the Canadiens, there's a lot of score effects going on.
Yes.
There's a lot of it's natural for that to happen. I just felt that they allowed Vancouver too easily into the game. And I know we're going to talk about it in our final segment. I do think that, I wish that this episode could only be focused on that top line because I was so impressed with them today.
Yeah. We're going to spend most of our time talking about that top line because it is deserving of that. I do feel like I owe our viewers on YouTube an explanation of my get up for the day because it's a very late recording for us. I'm channeling my inner Montreal Expos Yuppie when he got ejected from the game against the Dodgers. A scoreless game in the 10th inning that went to 22 innings. It took 22 innings for the Dodgers to win that game. So Yuppie missed most of that game. So I'm wearing what Yuppie was wearing when he took a nap on top of the Dodgers dugout and made old Tommy Lasorda very upset and had to get ejected from a baseball game. Unbelievable. Yuppie, my hero forever. My hero forever. Anyway, he's not part of the Canadiens' top line. We're going to talk about them later. And then I do want to talk about Sam Montembeault because I think it's a tale of two games for him as we've kind of grown to see from him in Montreal. But let's start with the game. Montreal gets out to a really great start. Nick Suzuki with a highlight reel goal. They're up 2-0 before the end of the first period. Juraj Slafkovsky picks up 3 points. What are your thoughts on how they bounced back from getting shut out against Calgary, a team in a very similar situation as the Vancouver Canucks?
I think the Canadiens regrouped really well. And I think something that was really important was I felt that top line sort of made it look natural.
Mm-hmm.
And which is not to say they didn't really, they didn't do any work against Calgary or anything like that. It just seemed that they allowed the goaltender to frustrate them more than anything else. They tried a lot of stuff, right? But Dustin Wolf was too good. And I think that I like their support tonight as well. I don't want to discount, I thought the second line, especially in the first period, was much better than I thought. And Marty played them more than I expected him to, right?
Yeah.
Like he wasn't babying or sheltering that line. And then there was your Armias, your Heinemans. They were doing the work. So I feel like the top line was able to just do their job.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think you're right about them not being sheltered towards the end because I think Marty recognized that line is getting us going. That line is making sure we don't have to play defense because they're playing at the other end of the ice.
Exactly.
When Vancouver's scored to come back within a goal to make it 3-2, the next line over the boards was the Boy Genius line. They took over, they got pucks in deep. They did all the things that you'd expect like a grinding line to do, but then turned it into offensive scoring opportunities. Cole Caulfield almost scored. It wasn't quite an empty net, but Lankinen was on the other side of it, and he just got knocked down in front of the net. He had an empty net to tap the puck into. But 3-point night from Juraj Slafkovsky, first star on the night. The opposite of a first star goes to Chris Lee, as our listener Amelia Pond pointed out on Bluesky. Chris Lee was horrific in this one, and we knew it from the moment we found out he was officiating this game. He was just bad. Both officials were bad. They blew a bunch of calls late in the game that allowed Vancouver to get back into it. I could go on a rant, but I don't really want to.
You're mistaken. It is legal to cross-check Cole Caulfield in the face and also in the back of the head 3 or 4 times.
Like a half dozen cross checks. That was crazy. That was right in front of the referee. I thought Josh Anderson breaking down the wing, and I think it was Philip Hronik just turned around and decided, I'm not playing the puck anymore. I'm just going to hold on to you. And they didn't call any. Like, it was just kind of, it was just exactly what you'd expect from a Chris Lee game, and nothing more, nothing less. I want to talk about the fourth line for a moment. You can split hairs about what is actually the fourth line, but when I say the fourth line, I'm referring to Jake Evans, Yoel Emile, and Emil Heineman. Against Calgary, Marty did not start that line. I believe he started the Dvorak line, or maybe it was even the second line with Beck. At any rate, he didn't start the line that he usually does, which is that Evans line. And the whole game was like they got off on the wrong foot.
It was off kilter.
Yes, immediately. What does he do in this game? He goes right back to that line to start the game. Armia goes in deep. He forces a turnover. And then, like, the very next shift, Suzuki scores a goal. Like, I think it's psychological at this point with them that if they know that the fourth line is going out there, we're in good hands. Like, I don't have to worry about our team starting on time.
Which explains the slump when Heineman was out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And Heineman in this one, he did turn over the puck that led to the second Vancouver goal. But I thought he was, or maybe it was the first Vancouver goal. I thought he was fantastic otherwise.
The first one.
Yeah, I thought he was great, especially as the game got more physical and chippy. Heineman was just bombing into guys. It was kind of nice to see that, he's not afraid to do that after sustaining an injury that wasn't even hockey related. I think we've all heard that more than we'd care to, but it's kind of worth mentioning.
Yes.
Anything else in this one that sort of stood out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have lots of praise. Heineman obviously was one. Joshua Roy, I was like, that was a good game for him in my mind. He made a lot of good plays. I don't think that maybe it was like 100% good because rose-colored glasses, especially in the end. Though I thought towards the end of the game when it was 3-2, I thought he made some really good plays. Josh Anderson, I know Josh Anderson, whatever he's playing through. Just like there was some phenomenal like forechecking, some defensive play there.
He was
Brendan Gallagher,
Gallagher was also an animal. So good.
Incredible, right? Yeah. So there are so many people to praise in this game. Like so many people. David Savard is very slow. There's nothing really we can do about that. But I did not like that Marty was playing him when it was 3-2 and then there was like 2 minutes left. I did not love that. Yeah. I did not love that. But there's just so many people to praise.
Yeah, and on Joshua Roy, I thought it was really so. The Canadiens got one power play in this game because it's a Chris Lee game. That's what happens. They got one power play, and it was the first line that drew the penalty. So the second power play unit came onto the ice. They took the first minute, and then the first power play unit came out to finish the power play. And wouldn't you know, Joshua was on that first power play unit. However, we only got to see it for a few seconds because they took another penalty that negated the rest of the power play. I'm kind of bummed we didn't get to see more of that power play. I'm thinking we will on Wednesday. However, Roy might not be a part of that because, as we know, Patty Laine might be coming back against Seattle. They're going to see how he feels. But if not, we might be looking at another game with Joshua Roy there. I think it speaks to Marty's desire to put players in a position where they can personally succeed, right? Like, he's an AHL call-up and he gets to play in the top 6 on the second line, regardless of whether or not you think that's truly their second line. He's playing with Alex Newhook. Yeah. And he gets power play time on the top unit. Like, that's putting Joshua Roy in a position to go, this is what you do down in Laval. Come do it up here. Yeah. Like, I appreciate that from him.
This is your shot. We're not going to artificially hold you back, right? Because you haven't played enough or whatever. Like I love that. Newhook also excellent zone entries tonight. Very, very particularly good zone entries tonight. See, lots of people to praise. I did want to say something about the Patty Laine thing though. He's not feeling well. This man is not feeling well. He doesn't have to tell us what's wrong with him. Marty doesn't have to tell us what's wrong with him. He is ill. Like that is all they need to say. So like inventing narratives about that in like the mainstream media or the fandom or whatever, like just leave the man alone. If he's sick, he's sick.
Yeah. I mean, keep him away from the team while he's sick.
Yeah.
What do you guys want? You guys want the whole team to get the flu and then there's nobody left to play and we're out of our normal call-ups and into all of our emergency call-ups by next week? Like that's not. I think
Also,
people
massive pet peeve when people are sick and they come to work. I hate it. I
Yes,
complain to their
1000%.
managers when I see it. I'm outing myself. I'm a narc. If
Yeah.
you are sick, do not be around people.
Yeah. Completely agreed. I mean, look, we're I don't know if everybody else saw the alerts from the Bell Center game against the Buffalo Sabres, but that is another case of stay home if you are sick. I'm not going to mention exactly what it is, but if you know exactly what I'm talking about. All right, we'll leave that game here in Vancouver. Montreal's on their way to Seattle Wednesday night. And when they head to Seattle, they are going to be bringing along one of the NHL's elite forward lines. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I feel like I've never truly missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Laura, we are back. And I don't know what it is about Nick Suzuki, but he's always going to have his haters everywhere, sometimes in his own fan base, sometimes most of the time throughout the rest of the NHL. He's not a true #1 center. That's not a true #1 line. I am here to tell everybody that that is bogus. The boy genius line, as we have been referring to it as, because it's really funny to call them that, is of Juraj Slafkovsky, Nick Suzuki, and Cole Caulfield, are statistically one of the best forward lines in the National Hockey League. I'm going to do, Laura, stop me if you've heard this before, but I pulled some numbers.
You did some math, Ian.
I did some
you did math.
I played with some filters on Money Puck, and I found the numbers that show that this is a very, very good elite line in the National Hockey League. This year, of lines to play at least 300 minutes together, which I picked because there's only 25 lines in the NHL that have that much time together. So basically every team in the league's top line, and then there are probably some teams that don't have a true top line. But of all lines to play at least 300 minutes, the Boy Genius line has been on the ice for 30 goals for. Only 3 lines had more. Now they have 33, so they've actually tied one of these lines, but it was the Kyle Connor, the Coward Mark Scheifele, and Gabe Vilardi line in Winnipeg, who are running away with it, 44 goals while they're on the ice. Lafreniere, Trocheck, and Panarin out of New York, and Gensel, Point, and Kucherov out of Tampa. That's the line that they tied tonight with the 3 goals that they scored while they were on the ice. So there's really only 2 lines in the league that are better at creating goals than that line.
Can I just?
And I know people. Yeah, go ahead.
I was surprised by the lines that you mentioned. Right, New York Rangers, Winnipeg Jets, Tampa, not so much. But where's the Austin Matthews line on there? Where's the Mitch Marner line on there?
Yep, Marner. It's Marner, Nyes, and Matthews is a couple spots below.
And then Connor McDavid line, Connor Bedard line.
Yeah, well, let me ask you a question about the Connor McDavid line. Who's on that line? It's Connor McDavid. You got one.
Right.
They played them earlier this week. I don't know who it is.
Okay.
so that to me is what shows. And that New York line, you'll see that line pop up a few times later on when we talk about this. But okay, so maybe you're thinking, well, this is just a flash in the pan. That it's a small sample size. Okay, let's look at all of last season of lines to play at least 350 minutes, which I picked that number because there's 29 lines that played 350 minutes last year. The Boy Genius line had the 3rd best expected goals for at 35.9 in the league behind, once again, Lafreniere, Trocheck, and Panarin somehow. Don't know how that line keeps popping up. Good for you, New York. And Forsberg, O'Reilly, and Nyquist out of Nashville, which
Wow.
those are pros. Like, that's a really, really good line.
Yeah.
In
O'Reilly in
actual
particular.
goals, yeah, in actual goals, while that line was on the ice, they were 5th in the National Hockey League behind Robertson, Pavelski, and Hintz, Marchment, Sagan, and Duchesne, and then those two we listed before. So they are, by all metrics, one of the top 5 lines in the National Hockey League over the last 2 years. I don't know how else we can argue this point other than to say that they're looking down at most lines in the National Hockey League in the thing that they're supposed to be doing, which is creating offense. And you can argue they're a little porous defensively. I would say that they fixed that to a great extent over the last year or so.
Yeah,
But look,
definitely huge improvement. Huge.
yeah, it's obvious. It's obvious that this line does what it needs to every night. It's obvious that this line is leading this team. I mean, can you think of where this team would be without them? It's like they'd be fighting with the Sharks for the 32nd spot in the National Hockey League. So I want to put this to bed. That is an elite line in the National Hockey League. Nick Suzuki is absolutely a first line center in the National Hockey League, and a darn good one at that. And next year they're going to insert Ivan Demidov somewhere into this lineup, and I think that is when people are firmly going to realize how great they are, because teams are going to have to figure out, okay, do I want to put all of my guys on Demidov, or do I want to put all of my guys on that top line? And they're going to have to make a choice. What do you think this line has been doing over the last year or so that's made them effective? Because it seems like they've kind of changed the way they play over the last year.
Yes, very much so. I think there was a lot of, like, we criticized them a lot, but there was a lot of breaking down of their game and rebuilding it last year. For example, Cole Caulfield did not score as many goals as we would have liked, right? But then
Yeah, sure.
you looked at his assist totals and you looked at his overall defensive play and you saw things that you weren't seeing the year before, right? With Nick Suzuki, like, he was used to being that two-way center and having to carry everything, whereas this year, or like I would say mostly this year, right? Like, he's been freed up a lot to really explore what he can bring to generating offense. I think that's really, really key. And you saw Uri Slafkovsky have like a shaky start last year, and then like in the middle of this year, it wasn't too, it wasn't too promising. But what I think Uri Slafkovsky has done particularly well is not get down on himself, but rather like try to figure it out. Whether it kind of, sometimes he looked like a baby giraffe out there,
Mhm.
but he figured it out, right? Like, he didn't give up. He made mistakes, right? He had another bad game, right? That was another bad game. I admit to another bad game. We'll do some other stuff. That other stuff isn't going to work, and then I'm going to keep doing it until I figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So I think, like, a lot of whether it was like assignments they took on or assignments Marty gave them, it really, like, they added more dimensions to their game over the
Yeah.
last 2 years.
I think that's right. And I think just this season, the dimensions that we've seen added to Uri Slafkovsky's game, obviously the physicality is well spoken for, but we were big critics of the way that he played when, especially I would say, like, around the two blue lines. I used to joke that we need to put a shock collar on him, and every time he tries to make a backhand pass at the blue line, it zaps him.
Mhm.
He's completely removed that from his game.
Yeah.
When he doesn't have that pass, especially in the defensive zone where it's way more risky for him to be making that pass, when he doesn't have that play, he double clutches and he'll circle back and he'll wait for the right play, or he'll give it to his defenseman and say, I'm going to live to fight another day. I'm
Yeah.
not going to just try to get out of the zone for the sake of getting out of the zone. I can trust the guys behind me, and I can trust my own patience and vision and decision making to say, hey, this isn't the best play for me. I'm not going to do it.
I
He's
think
completely removed that from his game, that annoying no look backhand pass to nobody.
Yeah, I think that patience, like the increase in patience, is really, really key as well. All the things you mentioned involve an element of having to improve his ability to stay patient.
Yeah, and oh my God, shoot the puck more. If he can shoot it like he did tonight, oh my God, he needs to shoot the puck
That's
way
so good.
more. That
So
was
good.
such a great shot, and there was no hesitation. And he
Yeah.
picked it up. He knew he's like he knew he was putting the puck on net, which
Yes.
I'd like to see that more from him. I know that's been a storyline for him, is he overthinks a lot of plays because he can trust his playmaking ability to a great deal, especially when he has, a former 30-goal scorer in Nick Suzuki and a soon-to-be 40-goal scorer in Cole Caulfield. That
8 goals away.
He's 8 goals away now.
8 goals
Unfortunately,
away.
no Lane Hudson point in this one though, so he'll need to pick it up. With 5 points against Seattle, that would be really great.
Yeah, he's never had a multi-point game before, so
No,
it's
it's
really
never
hard.
happened. Yeah,
Before we move on to our next segment, I really just want to shout out our good friend Carm, who was at the game. Happy birthday! I hope you enjoyed it. So yeah, that's one of our longtime listeners, a very good friend of the show.
You got to see a Mike Matheson empty net goal that I think the Vancouver Canucks deflected into their own net. Like the guy made a dive. I've never seen
He was
anything
sitting
like that
behind
in
the
my life.
goal too, so he
There you
definitely
go.
not coming at him.
Right into their kitchen. That's nice. All right, we'll leave that there. When we come back, this is where the conversation shifts a little bit to a potentially very concerning trend with one Sam Montembeault, and we'll get into all that in just a minute. Let me guess, you just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? It's easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your posts at the top of the page, and it helps you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot, believe it or not. I used to have interviewing power. I know it seems weird, especially me wearing the getup that I have on today. And I know that spot where you need to hire people like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person feels like a setback. It feels like you're being overwhelmed with the work that somebody else would need to be helping you with. That's exactly why Indeed's sponsored jobs comes in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. All right. So this topic of Sam Montembeault was born out of, like many topics on this show, a post that one Scott Metla made on Bluesky, which was a after the first period, a picture of the deserve to win-o-meter from Money Puck. This whole episode is powered by Money Puck, so thank you for all of the things that those guys do. And I think it was 80-20 for Vancouver. And the reason for that was the Canucks were just getting everything into the blue paint and trying to bang and crash the puck into the net. And I jokingly, but only half jokingly, said, I don't know why the Canucks are doing that. The way to beat Montembeault is to wrist the puck from the blue line. And don't you know it, later in that game, 2 goals, wrist shots from very far out against Sam Montembeault, which is, I believe, a very concerning trend with this goalie. I'm kind of nervous about the prospect of having to play some really meaningful games when those are the kinds of plays that can sink your season. It just feels like you're not giving this roster the best shot. I like Sam. I really do. I think he's a 1B goaltender in most situations. But those goals, man, like as a fan, I feel like deflated after watching the puck go across my TV screen at a speed I can follow with my finger and watch it go into the net. Like, where are you at on Montembeault and those kinds of goals at this point in his career and in the season?
What I like to call the Vesatoskala specials.
Yeah,
I love Sam Montembeault. I really do. I don't necessarily know if it was the distance that was concerning me as much as his inconsistency.
Yeah.
Like that to me is a little bit of a bigger concern. But here's the thing. They have Jakub Dobeš. They don't have that many games left in the season. Samuel Montembeault played a lot, right? I think they should, there are going to be meaningful games. I think they should really balance out the remainder of the season between the two goalies instead of having Sam Montembeault play most of them. I think that should be part of it. And the other thing too is that, we're seeing that those goals happen because where are his defensemen?
Yeah.
Right. That's another thing with like the second goal. I know it was on a power play. I think it was on the second Vancouver goal was on a power play. I didn't like anyone. I didn't like anyone on that goal. Right. I watched that goal and I was like, I want all of you to go to jail.
Yeah.
So
not about Sam Montembeault, but you mentioned, since we're talking about it, the first goal goes in and Marty, we think he's going to challenge it. He calls timeout because he wants to talk to Sam and say, hey, do you think you were interfered with? And Montembeault said no, which means that has to be what happened, right? Like that he skated over. Marty was like, "Could you have made the save?" And he's probably like, "Yeah, I probably could have made that one. I didn't need like I'm imagining that's how that conversation goes, which means Sam, you got to stop that one. You got to stop that one." And it's just that, when this team has sort of a bugaboo when they go up by 3, that can happen. We've seen them blow that lead to Toronto and lose. We've seen them blow that lead to Buffalo and come back and win it in overtime. And they nearly blew it again in this one. It's not a great trend where you get a huge lead.
I was fully expecting an overtime game. I started getting really stressed out.
Yeah.
It is currently 1:24 in the morning, people.
Yeah, I like UP. I would have found my way to get ejected from this podcast if this went to a. I saw someone online suggest that they were hoping this game was going to like a massive shootout, and I was just like,
why?
Yeah, you're just a bad guy. I don't know what to tell you. Like that's just bad. That bad behavior. We don't need all of that.
C'est pas fort.
Yeah, and look, you mentioned Dobish needs to play more. He's going to play Wednesday, which means he will have played 2 out of the last 3 games. He played in Calgary, was really great in Calgary, gave up the 1 goal, and he's going to play again against Seattle. I don't know if we're headed towards a 50-50 split because I really think that they're going to lean on Montembeault until the wheels fall off. Like that's what teams do.
Everyone does it.
Exactly. Yeah. This is not a Marty thing. Like we always talk about what Marty would do, what we would do. This is what the other 32 coaches in the National Hockey League would do. They would ride Sam Montembeault until they just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ian, I do have a question for you before we move on.
Let's go.
Are we doing the UP get up for tomorrow's game as well? It's even later than today.
I mean, look, I think they won, so I think I got to wear it again.
You got to do it again. Yeah.
I hope that this doesn't mean they go on a 19-game winning streak, but yeah, Listen, I will be back in the UP.
It's for the Habs. It's for the Habs. I know.
It's for the Habs, and it's for UP, who is my hero. So, yeah.
Yeah. Also, I didn't bring the Udi is my late game thing, but it's way too warm to wear it, so that's why I'm wearing my waffle robe.
Yeah, no, it's warm. It's warm here as well. So you made the right decision. It just all of a sudden became spring, and I don't really know how to feel about it because I was the same way. I'm like, do I put on a jersey to watch the game? It's like 1,000,000 degrees in here for some reason. It's not. It's like 65 for
you did the UP PJs.
Yeah, so the UP PJs, they will return against Seattle. Hopefully the Canadiens will find a way to pick up 2 more points. And hey, we talk about the mix, right? They're right back in it. They are now 2 points back of Columbus for the final wildcard spot. We could be talking about them being tied for that spot come Wednesday night. Or should I say early Thursday morning, because that's when that game will unfortunately come to an end. Absolutely. All right. You want to do our trivia and head out of here?
Yes.
All right. Yesterday's question was in honor of Joshua Waugh being called back up to the Montreal Canadiens. Joshua Waugh's last season with Sherbrooke of the QMJHL, he played with this player, son of a former Montreal Canadian. Do you remember the answer to this one, Laura?
Yes, it was Yaroslav Spacek's kid. I think his name is David.
Yes, David Spacek, defenseman. He's also a right shot defenseman, son of Yaroslav Spacek. So very well done. And also very well done to Par JF. I don't know that I've pronounced that correctly, but that's the user on YouTube who got that correct. So way to go. I think David Spacek is my Douglas Murray. Like I think I really just love talking about that defenseman for some reason. Like that's a lot of fun to me. All right. Today's question, follow the player path. We go from Dallas to Montreal, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Toronto. That's Dallas, Montreal, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Toronto. If you have the answer, put it in the comments on YouTube. Send it to us via email. You guys know how to find us. We will shout you out on the next episode of the show if you are correct. And that is, very fortunately for Laura and I, going to do it for us on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thanks so much for tuning in and for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, head over to the Locked On NHL podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We are everywhere that you can find social media posts at Locked On Canadiens. We are lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. We always have our mailbag on Fridays. Start sending in those questions now. We record them on Thursdays, so make sure to have them in by then, and we'll be sure to read them on the show. You can find me on the internet as Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.